Excuse me.
Wow, that's a hard one.
Number one, love yourself. Make caring for you the highest priority in your life. Take care of you. Look out for what truly satisfies you.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine recently about why we were talking about Black people and why we don't go to therapy. And I was saying to her that I think a big part of why Black people don't tend to be inclined to go is that I feel like for us there's so much like generational trauma in our DNA, just based off the history of how we, in particular African Americans, got here.
I started going to therapy. My aunt started going because she saw that I went. You see what I'm saying? When my mom died, I went to a grief group as soon as I got back to New York. Like, soon as I went. No one else was doing it in my family. No one, I just knew that I needed some kind of help.
I seek help because it's healthy. And I've always had therapy throughout the course of my life. I've always sought therapy to help me understand things that I couldn't figure out for myself.
So I think when we start seeing people that look like us talk, have these conversations, or to see people in our family go to therapy and be honest about it, don't put it under, don't let it be, swept under the rug and you trying to keep, trying to be perfect like I did. I think once it's representation always matters, man.
This thing is bigger than you know. And for those who are believers in the Lord Jesus Christ, that's great. But he sought help also. He talked to the scribes. He talked to the disciples. He talked to people. You need to talk to people. You need to say that I'm not okay right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. And when you can express that real truth in your heart, you become the better person for that. That's where the healing begins.
Develop compassion toward yourself despite your human defects. Develop compassion for yourself despite your human defects.
Yeah, I have not gotten used to not having her physically here, and her leaving so young. My mom was 42, and not being able to see my mom grow old. All these dreams you have for them. Those die with her. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes memories are not enough. Sometimes you do want to see her in the audience. You do a show, but it's always confirmation for me.
My mother and my uncles came home later that night, and my older brother and my older sister, who were in high school at the time, were not babysitting, but they were keeping an eye on us. And they came home and they were crying and they were upset. I was like, what's going on? What happened? Where's grandma? Where's grandma? And my mom was like, she's gone. And I'm like, gone where? Where is she gone? She's coming back, right? And my mom was just sort of like, baby, she's gone. She passed away.
I've always been quick I've always had the gift to be quick thinking. So I immediately changed, called my mom, where I knew that my parents were out having a Friday evening. Put some shorts and a t-shirt on, ran to the site where my brother was, saw him lying face down with his cap just off the top of his head, and I looked at him and he looked at me and we just looked, and his eyes said goodbye. And I closed his eyes and I took his cap. And I walked away.
Really had a savior complex, I could say, was that I couldn't save him, you know? As much as I tried to be the example, as much as I tried to encourage him, that was the hardest part, I think. And when he died, I remember, like I said, I was on the couch, I warmed up my food, I was actually about to eat my food, and then I got a message on Facebook from his cousin, and he said, call me, it's about Dewan. And I remember I sat there and I finished my food before I called him. Because I knew that was what had happened. I felt it. I knew. I actually sat there and finished my food before I called.
And I remember the funeral. I was wearing a Mickey or a Minnie Mouse sweatshirt, and my twin sister was also wearing a Minnie Mouse sweatshirt. And I remember my uncle picking me up, because I specifically told my Uncle Maurice, I was like, well, if she's gonna be in this box, can I like kiss her? Or can I like talk to her? Or say hi to her?
For my mom, it was Thursday morning, the morning that she passed, and I was on my way out the door to a 11 o'clock meeting. And I went to leave the door, and then somebody says, no, you should call home. So I stopped what I was doing, and I called home. And my sister answered, and she said, Mom's not doing good. Talk to her. And I said, okay. And I said, hey, Mom, it's Rosanna. I said, I hear you're not feeling so good today. She goes, no, I'm not doing so good today.
We're not taught to love ourselves. We're not taught to look out for ourselves. We're not taught to take care of ourselves, to become sensitive to our wants, to our needs, our desires. So make a conscious effort. Make you number one priority.
My brother's death, his loss in my life, moved me again from a place that we called home. And I moved north. From the south, I moved to the north.
You know, if I saw that my siblings were going on another route, I would try to warn them or try to find them alternatives. And with my brother used to always fight against it. Always. So I used to always say this, you know, I think we started off close when we were kids. And when you get into middle school and you start trying to figure yourself out and, you know, you kind of grow apart. If you're going this direction and your brother's going this direction, you can't be as close as you want to be.
So I had to readjust my view of what is this thing here that I am supposed to live with? Or how do I live in this environment? What is this environment? And at the age of 14, and being a very sheltered child, all I had was my family.
The streets became his father, became his brothers. He spent a lot of time in jail.
But my mom went to work. Per normal, was still supporting 6 kids on her own, so was still like holding up that economic part of it. But like when she got home, she would go up in her room and cry, or just watch TV for the rest of the night. And I felt like I lost my mom too.
My mom wanted him out of prison, and I was like, Mom, it's kind of saving him. It's protecting him right now. Because my brother had a lot of enemies in Kansas City. And I was just like, nah, like, it's kind of protecting him right now. And when he got out, I was just like, I remember having this uneasy feeling. And I wrote about it in my journal. You know, that I feared something, that he wasn't safe. I remember feeling that.
There are certain things that we just go through life just taking, and at some point, you just got to draw the line and just say enough is enough. You got to do that with yourself. Just draw the line. You know, see, when
I remember one of his cousins, one of my sister's cousins, whatever, wrote a caption under that picture and said, I was more a brother than you will ever be to him. And when I say that I never wanted to fight someone or destroy someone until I read those words. And for years, ever since I read that, I've been dealing with this guilt in some kind of way of wondering if I was there for my brother, or, and there were times where I had to remind myself of the truth, and I was like, nah, man, like that's a lie, But at the end of the day, it's still one of those things that echoes in my head, If I didn't move to New York, if I paid, if I sent him more money on his books,
Looking back on my mom's behavior and my mom's reactions to it, I was like, oh, my mom had a mental breakdown. Like, my mom kind of like low-key like lost it. And me, as a 6-year-old, I didn't have the intelligence or the vocabulary yet to sort of like name that and locate that on her. But now being 29, I'm like, yeah, my mom sort of like lost it for about a good year or two.
Because I was angry. I was angry for a whole host of things. And I know that that anger that I had was because I am the baby and I never had a chance to talk. I never had a voice. I was just moved here and here and here and here. But I was always welcomed with love. But no one ever asked me, how you doing? What you thinking? How you feeling?
I harbor a lot of resentment to my mother because I feel like when she lost her mother, she sort of like forgot to be mine.
As I got older, my mom and I, we had the conversation about those moments. And she just looked at me and she's like, you're my last child. Not like I hadn't seen it before. You're the baby. I didn't expect it to come from you, but understanding where you've been and all that you've gone through, I kind of understood it. So I just let you work it out. She'll come back around, I would always say.
I think I still have a lot of anger towards him, and even when my mom was sick, and he would ask her to put money on his books and to buy a TV in prison, and I'm like, you shot at a dude. You know what I'm saying? My mom can't pay her bills. My mom's up here worried, about you, and you're asking to buy a TV in prison.
And if you have people around you who are not sensitive to who you are, and the people that can hurt you the most, ladies and gentlemen, are the people that you love. That you love. They're the ones that you're vulnerable to.
There's always this impetus on like the closure of like the business of like getting them in the ground or like getting them cremated. It was always this thing of like, okay, I gotta make the arrangements, so-and-so passed away, we gotta make these arrangements, you gonna be able to get off work, you gonna be able to, how much can you contribute financially, well, can you pay for the coffin? It was always this thing of like tidying up the business of like taking care of the person rather than finding a way to sort of be like joyous or like celebratory or like honorary of this person's life.
I'm still trying to figure myself out because for 11 years grief has become mostly my identity, to where I'm like, okay, who am I on the other side of grief? Who am I, before grief? You know what I'm saying?
I would always tease my mom and say to her, I never asked to be a grown-up. I never asked to be a grown-up. What's this grown-up business? This grown-up business sucks. It's for the birds. She goes, keep living. And I was like, yeah, I suppose. But when she died, a part of me stopped living for a minute.
As a 6-year-old, I had sort of this magical thinking of like, this is my family, this is my grandma, no one ever really goes away. People don't go away, people don't change. And so like her being ill was sort of the first sign of like, something is wrong, or something is about to be wrong, or something is about to change.
I had one of the hardest times going to, visit him in prison, and there was also a part of me that was just, I was protecting a lot of my mom, man, and I didn't want her to stress out, and I didn't want her to worry about him and worry about me, and so a lot of my attention went towards her while he was in prison. But those words are something that I've been fighting ever since.
How does getting on with it look like? Does getting on with it means burying it? Pulling up your bootstraps and keep on stepping? It means that also. But it also means being able to honestly reach into your soul and say the things that are important in kind, not in anger, but in kind.
Your peace of mind, your health is more important than your family and any and everybody. Because if you don't have peace of mind, if you don't have your health, you can't serve anybody. Don't neglect yourself.
I feel that what my brother did, and my brother being in prison, affected my mother in a way that probably prompted her death in some kind of way. Like it added on to her depression. It added on. It stopped her from living. I wouldn't say that it was the main cause of it, but if your baby is in prison and there's nothing you can do about it, there's a sense of helplessness that you wrestle with. And there's probably a sense of guilt, for not being able to provide and not being able to protect him as a mother.
What I understood from this was how depression is. What is depression? The sadness of depression, the mental illness of depression, and how it manifests itself. That's what I learned from this tragedy and how my family dealt with it.
Within my family, there's always this sense of well, this thing happened to me, or I'm going through whatever, I'm in pain right now, but that's just the way it is. That's just the way life is. It's just, life is pain. And I feel like a part of that sort of thought process is just sort of well, we black, and we're we're kidnapped people living on land that we're not supposed to be on in the first fucking place. So yep, here we are, just going through it. We just going through the motions.
Grief is a silent killer of the heart. It's a silent killer in the mind, and it can quiet you to anger and demise that you otherwise wouldn't have, because it suffocates you.
I don't think that even right now there's been, any kind of record of me saying that I've dealt with depression. So if I'm able to use my battle wounds in order for other people to be healed, I find my own healing. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes, if people can see this and say, oh man, I'm going through the same thing, or man, he looks like me, maybe I'll call up that therapist. Then that's I am all about exposing my battle wounds in order for others' healing, you know, and then in the midst of that, I find my own healing.
What is this thing that clouds my brain? Why does this cloud comes over me and I feel like I'm going down the rabbit hole and I need help, but I don't know how to seek help? And so you feel this scream in your head. And where does that, who can answer that scream?
Doesn't matter how many failures I've made. Doesn't matter how many mistakes I've endured. Doesn't matter about my defeats. Doesn't matter about what I've done. Yes, yes. I don't care about the fact I'm in a hole now. Doesn't matter about where I am.
I have this journal, this notebook of my mom's. And I've had it, she's been gone 11 years. And there was one day I was really going through, just I call it grief days, or being ambushed by grief, where it just comes out of nowhere and you're kind of crippled. And I remember whenever I have dreams about my mom, I write them down in her notebook. So I've been keeping a dream record of her, my brother, and my grandmother in this book. And I've had it for 11 years. And I remember this one day I woke up from this dream, and I had this dream about my mom. It was very vague, but I was like, I'm going to write it down. I have to write it down. And I remember going through and, through the notebook to try to find a clean piece of paper to write, a clean sheet. And this little piece of paper fell out. And I'm like, I haven't seen, what is this? And, I've had this notebook for 11 years. I've never seen any, I didn't know anything was in there. And I opened it up and it says, I love you. My mom wrote that. I don't know how. It's those moments that you're like, okay, all right. She's around. She knows what I'm going through. She's still present. I still cannot. I can't even explain those moments. Like, I can't.
If you're ready to go, it's okay. And I went through the reasons why it was okay. You've grown a beautiful family. You've been able to see 4 generations. We are all healthy. We're here with you. Your sisters is there with you. And it's okay. And I want you to know that I love you. And I will miss you forever. And the last words, that my mom said was that I love you. And we hung up the phone. And in 2 minutes, the phone rang again. And I was told my best. And those were the last words that she spoke to me, to tell me that she loved me.
I have a letter from my brother. My brother was in prison. And when I say that letter is a personification of what we used to be, to where he wasn't throwback, he wasn't this gangbanger, he was my little brother. And I was telling, we were joking even in the letter when I was like, yo, I'm trying to get back out there and date, it's this girl I'm digging. And he's like, oh, I know all about that. You'll find her, you'll find her, she like, hey, I'm the Mac Daddy, da da da. And it was like really cool to have this exchange with my brother because I hadn't had that in so long, and he didn't get to go to Mama's funeral. And to hear his pain in that letter of not being able to go and how he missed her, that's the stuff that I miss. And that's the stuff that I wish I had more of with him. wish I had more of those moments. So I think that if he was here, that would still be my goal, is to have that same type of closeness.
What was empowering for me is that, like, realizing that, like, I had a decision in how I could process things. I could kind of fall into the model that I think my mother and my immediate family has of, again, being like, well, so-and-so passed, we have to figure, we have to tie up these loose ends. I could do that, and that's familiar to me because it's what I've seen. It's how I've seen things being played out. But I think part of my healing in regards to loss and grief the last few years has been like the opposite, and being like, okay, time, again, going back to what we talked about before, time is not some infinite thing. Like, time is measured, and time has boundaries, and there's a time and place for everything, and we're all meant to go when we're meant to go. And it's not a cynical thought, but it's sort of like we all visit the planet for as long as, like, God allows us to, right? And there is sort of a beauty and liberation in that.
For my brother and my mom and my auntie, my dad, my cousin Shed, my brother-in-law. But for my mom and my dad and my brother Ron, those deaths changed my life. Those losses made me grow up a little bit more each time. Because first it was my brother Ron. Then it was my mentor Shetty, cousin Shetty. And it was my auntie, who would always greet me with this expression. She would take me by the face and she'd say, "It's so nice to lay my brown eyes upon your brown eyes." And she was the one that understood me the most growing up. She was the one that I could lay my hand on her chest and she would comfort me.
I think honesty, being honest with where I'm at, whether it's beautiful, whether it's ugly, whether it's difficult, whether it's easy, like being okay with saying, this is where I'm at. I think honesty, like I said before, allowing myself to be where I am.
You've got to say yes to your life. You've got to say yes. Yes to my dreams. Yes to me. Yes, I can make it. Yes, I can.
I would say joy is triumph, seeing what's on the other side of fear, what's on the other side of grief, finding the beauty in mess. Joy, it's actually one of those things that I'm actually working on. I'm redefining that definition. I know what it feels like. And Nina Simone said something about what love feels like. I think it's the same thing. It is no fear, freedom.
It's the way I live my life. I live my life in a state of gratitude, in thankfulness,
are, and you're not, again, being gentle with yourself, you're not cultivating how you can always sort of be your own best advocate, you lose yourself too. And I think that's very real. I think there is such a thing as losing yourself in whichever sort of way. And so I think joy is just like being really liberated in the fact that it is okay to be aware of your trauma. It is okay to like recognize that your trauma has made you who you are, and it's okay to like talk about it, and it's really freeing to like talk about it.
I'm just tryna put my niggas on. Yeah, I'm tryna put my niggas on. I'm just tryna put my niggas on. I'm just tryna put my niggas on.
I'm trying to get it. There is no time like the present. Man, I just hope that you feel this. Can boss the realest. I have no time for the bullshit. And you can keep all that fake shit. Man, let's just face it. You niggas basic. Me and my team, we be grinding all day. And if you won't give it to us, then we'll take it. Came in and fucked up the game, now they saying these niggas slaying, get out they way. You niggas want services, you gotta pay. There will come a time, there will come a day. I look at my niggas and then I will say, nigga, we made it, going down, it's the greatest. You remember that day when we were about to lose patience? All the time we spent waiting, and the demons were debating. Even then we never changed them, laying low and stacking paper. We did what those niggas they couldn't do. So much to say when I look at you. I'm doing my thing, got nothing to lose. I'm in my own lane, that's the fucking truth. Grinding all day just to hit the booth. Kicking down doors as we going through. I never switch up on my fucking crew.
I'm pretty sure people are like, oh, what Raphael is going to come in today. And being okay with that, man. It's a sense of freedom, bro. It's a sense of freedom. It's a sense of freedom to just not have it together or whatever. What does that mean? I think that's the thing that I'm just trying.
I love it. You said it.
Yeah. It's
I love
real, bro.
Yeah. I think everybody on this earth is still trying to figure out who the fuck they are every day.
Everybody's trying to figure it out, bruh. Like, everybody is trying to figure it out.
Yeah, everybody's trying.
And it takes the pressure off